The last time I spoke to my dad, he was sitting quietly on the porch watching the rain, and when I asked what he was thinking about, he said, just trying to remember who I was before everything changed. I didn't push him to explain. And now I'll never know what he meant. The last time I spoke to my dad, really spoke to him, was a Tuesday afternoon in late September. It had been raining steady all day. The kind of rain that turns everything gray and makes the whole world feel like it's holding its breath. I was staying with him for a few days, helping clean out the house after Mom passed last spring. It had been a long year already. He was sitting on the porch in that same old wicker chair he always used. The one he'd had since I was a kid. I don't even know how it was still holding together. He had a cup of coffee in his hands, black, no sugar, like always. And he was staring out at the road, watching the rain hit the driveway in little splashes. I remember walking out there and standing beside him. I didn't say anything at first, just stood there, listening to the soft sound of rain, the creak of the old porch swing, and the occasional car passing by in the distance. Then I asked, "What are you thinking about, Dad?" He didn't look at me. He just kept staring out like he was looking through the rain into something way past it. Then he said, "Just trying to remember who I was before everything changed. That's it. Nothing else." I waited, thinking he'd say more, that he'd explain what he meant. But he didn't. He just sipped his coffee slowly, like he had all the time in the world. I didn't press. I didn't ask what he meant. I told myself he was just feeling down. Maybe missing Mom. Maybe thinking about old times. It felt too personal to push, and maybe I was too afraid to hear whatever was behind it. That was the last full sentence he ever said to me. He died 2 days later. They said it was an accident. Slipped getting out of the tub, hit his head. But his heart gave out, that's what the coroner said. Like his body just gave up. I didn't want to believe it. It seemed quiet, yeah, but not weak, not ready to go. After the funeral, I stayed behind to finish what we'd started. Packing things up, going through drawers, sorting out the mess of a life that someone leaves behind. That's when things started to get strange. In the back of his closet, I found a locked metal box. Nothing fancy, but it was tucked behind old boots and coats he hadn't worn in years. I had to pry it open. Inside were things that didn't make sense. An envelope full of cash, almost $6,000 in small bills. A driver's license with a different last name and a picture of my dad from at least 20 years ago. The name on it was Raymond C. Barlow. My dad's name was Dean Halbrook. He'd lived in Elkins for over 40 years. Everyone knew him. Everyone knew our family. So who the hell was Raymond Barlow? There were also photos, old Polaroids. Some were of my mom, looking younger than I ever remembered her, and others were of people I didn't recognize. A man in a red trucker hat. A woman with a scar across her cheek. A couple of kids who looked like they were at a birthday party. None of them had names written on the back. No dates either. I found a folded piece of paper near the bottom. It was a map hand-drawn, with a big red X marked just south of Parkersburg, near a place called Reedy. It didn't say what was there. There was no note. No explanation. Just this box of secrets sitting there like it was waiting to be found. I kept going through the house, trying to make sense of it all. I looked through every drawer, every file, every shoebox full of old receipts and tools. I even found an old tape recorder in the attic. But the tape inside was blank. Nothing but static. I thought about what he said on the porch, trying to remember who I was before everything changed. Now I wasn't sure I even knew who he really was. Was he hiding from someone? Did he have another life before he met Mom? Was he running from something or someone? And more importantly, why did he take all that to the grave? After the funeral, most folks dropped off casseroles, hugged too long, then disappeared. That's how it goes in small towns like Elkins. Everyone shows up when someone dies, but nobody wants to stick around for what comes after. I stayed at the house. Alone. Every room still smelled like Dad, old wood, coffee, and that cheap shaving cream he used. At night, the silence was heavy. During the day, I kept circling back to that metal box. I laid everything out on the dining room table. The fake ID, the money, the photos, the map. I stared at it for hours. The name Raymond C. Barlow kept running through my head like a warning. I decided to dig. I started with the photo of the woman with the scar. I scanned the image and ran it through a few online reverse search tools. Nothing came up at first, but after a few days a match popped up on an old missing persons forum from 1989. The woman's name was Brenda Mayfield. Last seen in Spencer, West Virginia. About an hour from Reedy. She was listed as a waitress who disappeared after closing up a roadside diner one night. The post mentioned she had a distinct scar on her right cheek. Same side, same face. I called the number listed. It was out of service. So I drove there. Spencer looked like time had forgotten it. I found the diner, now a boarded-up gas station. I asked around, showed the photo to a couple locals. One older guy said, "That's Brenda. She vanished way back." Some folks said she ran off. Others said she never left. I asked if anyone remembered a guy named Raymond Barlow. He paused, then said, "There was a Barlow who worked the mills for a while. Quiet fella. Drove a blue Buick, I think. Left town without a word." He didn't say more, just walked away like he regretted opening his mouth. I drove to Reedy next. It was barely a town, more like a bend in the road. There was a gas station, a church, and not much else. But the red X on the map pointed to a patch of woods a mile or two outside town. It was private land now. Posted signs every few feet. "No trespassing" in big, bold letters. I parked at the edge of the road and walked in anyway. The trees were tall, thick, and quiet. I followed the lines drawn on the map, counted steps between the old oak trees, just like the marks showed. At the center, there was a rusted metal marker sticking out of the ground. No writing, just a post. I started digging. Not with a shovel, just my hands at first. The dirt was damp, packed. After about a foot, I hit something hard. It was a wooden box. Not like the one from Dad's closet. This was older, heavier. When I pried it open, I found a stack of old papers wrapped in plastic. Newspaper clippings. Police reports. A journal. And bones. Small bones. Like from a child. My stomach flipped. I backed away, breathing hard, hands shaking. One of the newspaper clippings was dated 1987. It was about a missing boy. Thomas Greeley, age 6, vanished from a church event in Parkersburg. The article had a photo. I'd seen that kid before. He was in one of the Polaroids from Dad's box. I didn't call the police. Not yet. I drove back to Elkins, not speaking a word the entire way. I needed to think, to figure out what the hell I'd stumbled into. Was my father involved in this? Was he hiding something darker than I ever imagined? Or was he trying to protect me from finding out the truth? I didn't sleep that night. The image of those bones kept flashing behind my eyes every time I closed them. And the boy's face, Thomas Greeley, burned into my brain. He looked happy in the photo. Birthday cake smeared on his cheek. Little hands holding up a toy truck. That photo had been in my dad's secret box. That same photo. I couldn't ignore it anymore. By morning, I was running on coffee and nerves. I locked the box back up, stashed it in the trunk of my car, and went back into Dad's office. I tore through every drawer, every folder, looking for anything else. And I found something, wedged inside the back of a dusty filing cabinet. A photo of Dad, younger, standing next to a sheriff's deputy. The back of the photo had something scribbled in faint ink. Me and Roy, 89, before it all went bad. Roy. The name triggered something. I remember Dad getting a call late one night when I was a kid. I was maybe 8. I came down the stairs and caught just a bit of the conversation. "I told you never to call me here," Dad had snapped into the receiver. He hung up hard. I'd never heard him talk like that before or since. When he saw me on the stairs, he didn't say a word. Just stared. I ran back up to my room. I never asked him about it. Until now, I'd forgotten the moment even happened. I started digging online again. This time for any Sheriff Roy from anywhere near Parkersburg or Spencer around the late 80s. Eventually, I found him. Roy Franklin. Former deputy sheriff in Wirt County. Fired in 1994, misconduct. No other details listed. I found an address for a trailer park just outside Elizabeth, West Virginia. I drove there that same afternoon. The trailer was falling apart. Broken porch light, rusted siding, windows covered with tin foil. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Finally, the door creaked open. An old man stood there, rough beard, yellow eyes. "What? You Roy Franklin?" I asked. He squinted at me. "Who's the skin?" I held up the photo. This man, Dean Holbrook. He was my dad. He stared at it. His mouth twitched. "Son of a bitch," he muttered. Then he opened the door wider. "You better come in." The inside of the trailer smelled like booze and mildew. He lit a cigarette with shaky hands and poured a shot of cheap bourbon. "Didn't offer me any." "What do you want?" he asked. "I found something," I said. "A map. A journal. Bones. You were in a photo with him. You knew my dad." He stared at the drink in his hand, then downed it in one gulp. "We both knew things," he said. "Things we were supposed to forget." "What happened?" He looked at me, his voice low. "Your dad wasn't always Dean Halbrook. He used to be Ray Barlow. We worked together. Back when things went sideways." "Sideways how?" "There was a man. A preacher. Ran a place near Reedy. Called it a youth camp, but it was something else. Real bad things happened there. Your dad and I were part of a task force meant to shut it down. But it got buried. Fast. The preacher vanished. So did the evidence." "Why?" Roy leaned back. "Too many people had their hands dirty. Judges, cops, even parents. Your dad tried to blow it all up. He took photos, recorded everything. One night, he told me he'd found proof a kid was killed out there. He wanted to go public. I told him not to. Told him they'd come after him." He stared at the floor for a long time. "Next day, he was gone. Changed his name. Moved to Elkins. I never saw him again." I sat there stunned. "So the boy? Thomas Greeley, he was real?" Roy nodded. "Yeah. And he wasn't the only one. Why didn't anyone stop it?" He looked up at me, dead serious. "Because the people who could stop it were the ones protecting it." I left without saying another word. My hands were shaking as I started the car. My dad hadn't just run from something. He'd escaped something. And maybe he carried that weight until it finally broke him. But something was still missing. If he'd kept the map and the evidence, why didn't he ever tell me? Why wait until after he was gone? And why did it feel like someone still didn't want that truth to come out? The next few days felt like I was walking through a fog. Couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woods, that box, the bones. I heard Roy's voice in my head. He wasn't the only one. I didn't know what to do with what I knew. I kept telling myself maybe it was too late. That the past was the past. That nothing I did could bring that little boy or any of the others back. But then I thought of my dad. Sitting on that porch, staring at the rain, holding all of this in until it ate him alive. I couldn't let it end like that. So I went back to the woods one more time. I brought a real shovel this time. And a camera. I dug deeper where the box had been. I found more. Another box, this one half-rotted. Inside were old cassette tapes covered in mold. I took them back home, cleaned them the best I could, and managed to play them. What I heard made my blood run cold. Children. Crying. Pleading. A man's voice, deep, calm, cruel. Saying things I won't repeat. On another tape, my dad's voice, whispering like he was scared out of his mind. "This is Ray. If anyone ever hears this, they buried the truth. But it's still here. I made copies. I wrote everything down. Every name Roy gave me, every detail from the files in the box. Then I sent them. To news stations. To the FBI. To every lawyer I could find. It took a few weeks before anyone responded. Then the floodgates opened. The property near Reedy was excavated. They found 3 more bodies. All children. DNA matched them to old missing person cases from the 80s. The tapes were real. The voices were verified. The preacher had died years earlier, but others, men in law enforcement, judges, even a local senator, were pulled into the light. Some denied everything. Some ran. A few were arrested. Charges were filed. Cases reopened. Names dragged into the press. My dad's name too. Dean Halbrook, a.k.a. Raymond Barlow, became both a suspect and a whistleblower in the eyes of the public. The media didn't know what to make of him. Some painted him as a coward who ran. Others called him a hero who tried to do what he could from the shadows. But no one really knew him. Not like I did. He wasn't perfect. He ran, yeah. He hid. He changed his name. But I think he did it to survive. To stay alive long enough to raise a family. To give me a chance to grow up safe. And in the end, maybe he hoped I'd be the one to finish what he couldn't. I went back to the porch one last time before selling the house. Sat in that same wicker chair. It groaned under my weight. The rain started again, soft at first. Just like that day. I looked out across the driveway and said, out loud, "I know who you were now." And I cried. Harder than I'd cried since the day we buried him. He wasn't the man I thought he was. He was something more. Something broken, maybe, but brave. As for me, I still have nightmares. Still wake up thinking someone's watching me from the trees. But I live with it, because I chose to pull the truth out of the dirt. I chose not to walk away. And in doing so, I became a part of the story he tried to bury. Not for revenge. Not even for justice. But to remember. To remember who he was before everything changed.